The views and opinions expressed in this content are that of a continuously evolving nature and are subject to change as humanity evolves into higher states of awareness.
And I do remember when I first got the books and I found out about reincarnation, I was saying to my husband, I don't believe this, Mike. We've lived before. And he'd look at me, because he wasn't into it at all, as if I was crazy. And I said, we've had other lives, you know, and all this sort of thing. Every time I came across something, you know, I've got auras and we can heal like Jesus and all this sort of thing. And he used to turn around to me and say, Anne, you are so gullible. And I said, but it feels right, feels right. And of course now he believes it, but the way they got him to believe was I found out about the parking angels. And it was Christmas time. Now, Mike is not one for shopping. You don't go shopping with my husband. He does not enjoy it. So I always went shopping on my own, but he had to get something for his computer. He had to go to a computer shop. So he came in with me, and it was about 3 days before Christmas. And we went to park, and of course we were in a queue. It's absolutely packed in the top of what it's called. It's called French Gate now, but it's Arndale in those days. And I'd said to him before we went, I'm going to order where I want to park, Mike. So I told him exactly where I wanted to park. And it was next to a machine, because in those days you had tickets that you took from a machine. And no barriers. And I said, that's where I want to park. So we're coming up. And of course we could see the place where I want to park. And he said, there's a car in there. He said, you can't park in there. I said, we haven't got there yet, Mike. We're still in a queue. If it goes in it now, somebody else will take it. So we're just coming up and there's 2 cars in front of us. And this man is walking towards the car. And the 2 cars go round the corner. He gets in the car. He pulls the car out. He winds down the window. He hands me a ticket and he says, I've got 3 hours on this ticket and I've only used 10 minutes of it. So I got a free ticket, free parking, and we slotted into there. And I said, thank you, angels. And I said, there you go, Mike, you need to have faith. A fluke, he said. It's a fluke. So we go to San Francisco. And when we're in San Francisco, we've got a friend there. And she says, I can't believe it. You've arrived when it's so clear. There's no mist. I want to take you up this hill and you can have a look at the whole of San Francisco and you can see Alcatraz, the prison that's down in the bay. And so we get, we get into the car and we start travelling round this bit of a hill. And of course we're in a queue. So I said, we'll ask the parking angels if we can park. She says there's only about 6 or 7 places where you can actually park the car to look. Otherwise you've got to stay in the queue and just go to the top and come down again. So I asked the angels and we're coming up and of course it's packed. And Mike says, well, there's somebody in those, nobody's going to come out, Anne, you know. And I said, we haven't got there yet. Anyway, a car came out and we went in to that parking place. And I tell you what, Di couldn't believe it, my friend. And now she uses the parking angels in San Francisco. I saw her recently, about 5 weeks ago. And I said, you still using the parking angels? She said, yeah. She said, I always get a parking place. It's incredible. I said, I know. They're under, that's their job to park your car for you. Have faith. And but Mike, from that day on, I think he started to believe there may be something in this. So I hope you all use the parking angels. And I've told a lot of people about that. I remember going into a card shop in our local card shop. It just sell cards, birthday cards. And I told her about the parking angels. And every time I go in there, she said, it works, Anne. She said, it really works. She's not into spiritual at all. I say, yeah, I know it does. It's great when you can pass these little things on. But what I would like to talk about is to say to you all that if You do the work that you come here to do. You work with love. I'm a great one for affirmations, pushing my love out. I need to go to the mind bodies because I mix with people who are walking in the light. Everybody's happy, and I love them, you know, the crystals. I love to be in that atmosphere, and I do a lot of work there. I go and sit in the restaurant, and people come to me, and I sit and talk to them, and a lot of my work is done there. But now, I was at one recently, and a lady who does reading, she looked up at me as I was passing. She said, "Oh, Anne," she said, "I've got a message for you. You've got to stop doing one-to-one. You've got to reach a wider audience." Oh, I thought, well, how do I do that? You know, reach a wider audience, impossible. And a few days later, our television went wrong. We bought a new one. And the young man next door, who's a whiz kid with all these electronics, he came in and he tuned it for us. And he brought up this row of things, pictures, and he said, he said, "This is YouTube." He said, "You're going to love this. This is how you get into YouTube." I said, "What is YouTube?" And he said, "You know about YouTube?" "No." He said, "Anne," he said, "there's spiritual stuff on it." And he said, "You're going to love it." And he put it onto this YouTube, and there was all this spiritual stuff. I mean, my sister was on there, Mary Rodwell, and Dolores Cannon, and, you know, all these wonderful people, the Palladians, and, well, I haven't watched television since I've been watching YouTube. I just don't want the negative television anymore. It's so marvellous. So I watched this and looked at it all, and then on the Thursday, there was another medium who gave me, she was doing, with a crowd of people, giving them messages, and she came to me and she said, she said, "Spirit is saying you've got to stop doing one-to-one. They want you to reach a wider audience." So I thought, well, that's confirmation. Still didn't think what I could do with it. And then I went to a mind body and I met this very handsome young man, and he talked, I think we talked for about 2 hours. And I was just talking to him normally. I can't remember what I talked about. But he said, "I would like to put you on YouTube." And he said, "You'll reach everybody." He didn't know about me saying I needed to reach a wider audience. But you see, we were put together. He can do it. I can sit in front of his camera and I can reach a big audience. So I hope you enjoy and you get something from it, dear ones, because I'm very excited about this, and I feel that I'm leaving a mark behind me when I go home. I'm going to go home one day, and I can leave this as a legacy, because apparently it's all over the world. And I was looking at some write-ups, and I couldn't believe it, because people in America were watching this, and in Australia and places, and, you know, it's incredible that this has happened to me. So I'd like to then say thank you to all of you for watching. And when I think back how I started with the convent, being very frightened, was walking away from religion, and I was very frightened of death. I thought I could never live up to being a saint, and I was going to burn in hell, and I wasn't looking forward to it. And I met a young lady on a beach in Singapore. I used to live in Singapore. And she'd just had a baby. And she said, "I want to say something to you, Anne." I mean, I was only in my 20s then. And she said, "I died." And she said, "And I came out of my body." I said, "What do you mean you came out of my body?" She says, "I saw them working on me on the operating table." She said, "And I came out of my body and I could hear them talking." She says, "And I went to this light." And she said, "I didn't want to go back." She said, I was so full of love. And she said, all these angels were there. And she said it was wonderful. And one of them turned around and said, "It's not your time. You've got to go back." And she said, "I don't want to go back. I can't go back." And they said, "No, you've got work to do." She said, "I was back in my body like that." She said, "But I've felt guilty ever since, because it took me a long time to have this baby. I had many miscarriages, and I had to spend 6 months or something in hospital to carry this child. And I love my husband, I love my little baby, and yet I was happy to leave them. She said, and I feel guilty about that, and I didn't know what to answer her then. But she took away the fear of death for me, because I went home eventually, and I remember getting the paper called The People, I think it was called. It was a Sunday paper, and it had an article of people that had come out of their bodies and saying what she had said. So I thought, well, that's true. So that was my first sort of inkling of something of the weird that I'd never been taught. And I thought, why does the church tell you this nonsense? Because it's so frightened. So many people are frightened to die. And I think it's cruel. But that was the first thing that happened. And I met... How did I start? I'm trying to think how I started. That's right, I went across the road, I had my healing, and I went to Kindred Spirit. And from Kindred Spirit, a lady turned up one day. Her name was Sharon. And she told me that she meditated in her garden for 10 years. She'd meditated, but she did nothing else. And one day, her voice said to her, you've got to stop doing this and you've got to start doing the real work. It's nice you meditate and everything, but you're not here just to do that. So we want to give you a task. And what we want you to do, we want in 6 weeks' time, we want you to have a garden party in your garden and your home. We want to give people a feast, but you've got to invite 80 people. No more, no less. It's got to be exactly 80 people. And you've got to bring them to and have this, or provide all this food. Well, she says, I don't know anybody. So I saw her in the paper, this Kindred Spirit. She came, she met me. We gave her a lift home, and she was in the car, and she says, how many people do you know? I said, I don't know anybody, because I'm right at the beginning of it. I said, I don't know 80 people. And she said, well, will you come? I said, yeah, I'll come. My husband will come. My children will come. They came. So we had a few. Anyway, the following week, we weren't going because Mike was busy and he couldn't take me. And because by then he used to take me because he was coming. And so we told everybody, we're not coming next week. But Mike managed to get home early. And he said, come on, let's go. And I said, we'll be late. And he said, no, we'll go. Because you never walk in on something like when people are doing mediumship, you know, because you could disturb them. And he said, we'll go. But everything was against us. We kept running in traffic lights and behind tractors and, you know, so we were about 10 minutes late. And we sort of opened the door and we cracked in and we went in. And instead of a lady talking, it was a man. And he was standing in for somebody else, but he said something. He said, oh, they've arrived now. We've been waiting for you. Come in. And I thought, well, why is he waiting? We told everybody we weren't coming. So later on, I said to, his name was Roy, and I said, Roy, why did you say that? He says, well, I was told by my guides you were coming. I was to hang on for 10 minutes. He said, they were talking to me this afternoon, and they said, you'd be late. And I said, is that possible? You know, and you know, that was how I met Roy Bennett. But anyway, the following week, I went to Sharon's to give her a book I'd borrowed off her, and Roy was in her house, and he said, "You didn't expect to see me, did you?" And they really hit it off, and they ended up becoming partners, these two. And so it was sort of a connection straight away with these two. And so he knew 80 people. She had her 80 people. Because he did the circuits, he did all the churches, he did healing, he did tarot, he'd been doing it for years. He just phoned everybody up and everybody came. We had 80 people. But, unknown to her, 3 months before, her son had put in for Mother of the Year. And she came second. And she got £400 vouchers for Asda's. She had her feast. And it was all arranged beforehand. Step into the magic, darlings, because it is magical.